And Kelly thought KI was a scam. People have those kinds of thoughts. You should be discerning between something that's authentic and a scam. But somehow she came to work with me despite thinking it was a scam. But it was one of the first things we had to work on. She was very embarrassed. She was an anger repressor, also had some repression of hurt, the expression of that feeling, and a fear of being humiliated. That was Kelly's unconscious. Her repression was that. So she was really brave to bring it up to me in the beginning of mentorship. And she gave me permission to talk about it here, to tell Kelly's story. When she first came, it wasn't that she thought I was, as some people do, they think this spiritual teacher or that spiritual teacher is just a fraud that wasn't her thing. It was like, Scott, you seem nice enough. And I thought, well, yeah, anger repressors think that other anger repressors are nice enough. She said, it's more that the whole thing is a scam. And I said, okay, well, the one thing we say to people is, if you really think that there's a scam here, we have a grievance process where you fill out all the details of that and you let us know, and we have a panel of people looking at what you're seeing so that we can take that kind of feedback seriously. But she said, no, I mean, of course I'll do that later if I need to. She said, this is something else. I mean, she said, I just did a retreat last week and I had the same thought about it. I said, okay, we can make this into just, this is your trauma, but I want you to know that when people have emotional repression and trauma, if they have something that they need to say, to express, to give feedback, to complain about, if there's no process for that, that itself can be traumatizing. So I sent her the link and said, anytime you want to make a complaint, this is available for the public. I'll put the link in the mentorship thing, I said to her. And you can always have it, so that if KI being a scam becomes such an issue for you that you feel like you need to let us know, I'll ask you to put forth all the evidence and conversations, messages, advertising, anything you can. And she said, thank you. That actually feels good, she said, because like when I'm at work, she said, if I have a problem with my boss, there's no outlet for that. And I just sit there and people please him as an anger repressor. And I said, I get it. And I said, okay, so if it's not that, what do you think it is, Kelly? And she said, well, I can't just say it's my repression. I know it is, because I can sense that I'm angry at you. I've already gone to it, she said. And I knew she had, because we'd been working together. So it was not a mystery that Kelly was angry at her dad and that she was drawn to spiritual teachers because they represented that father figure. And she was also drawn to the safer ones that didn't seem like they would be angry. And so she used to be more drawn to me, she said, when I was in anger repression. And she started to feel a little bit trepidatious as I got to my anger repression. I said, well, I understand that, if that would have been a shadow for you. She said, 100%. But she said, I got over that piece, and I saw that that was your process, and you had to go through that. And then if I was afraid to work with you, that would have more to do with me. And I said, exactly. Okay, that's why you're in mentorship, because if people can't see basic things like that, it becomes hard to end their suffering. So she said, well, what I don't understand, Scott, is how every time I look at you or Dan talking about KI, I have this feeling that tells me this is a scam. I said, well, that's the feeling we're talking about, isn't it? She said, yes. I said, feel into that and say, what do I get out of believing that KI is a scam? And she said, it protects me. I stay safe. And I said, what else? And she said, well, this I don't understand. I get love and approval. And I said, well, see what that means. And what it was is by believing that KI was a scam, but by still doing mentorship with me, she could get love and approval, but not get the freedom here. She could protect herself from feeling the buried anger, but still get love and approval by not telling me that she thought what we were doing was a scam. So I said, would you be willing, thank you for telling me, would you be willing to go into that feeling that you have that tells you KI is a scam and process it? And she said, yes. And what came up first was shame. She was ashamed of having told me that because she knew, well, she told me she knew it came from her trauma, but now that it's out on the table, like our relationship would never be the same. And I said, that's not the case at all. I actually have better relationships with people when there's authenticity in the relationship. So if you feel like what we're doing is a scam, how can you and I ever have a good relationship if we just don't address it? So she went into the feeling, and the feeling of shame she saw kept going. And I said, well, look, use utility inquiry. Go into that feeling of shame. What do I get out of feeling ashamed right here? And she said, it protects me. I stay safe. And so we looked into what she was staying safe from, and it was not telling me that this was a scam, but doing KI. So she went into how angry she was at her dad and how angry she was at the unconscious at me and Dan, but mostly how she couldn't express that anger to her dad and to us, and that she had just started to believe it was a scam so she wouldn't have to get to her buried anger. And then she said, well, how would I know if it's a scam until I get to my buried anger? And I said, well, you wouldn't, right? But if it's your repression, all we have to do is provide an outlet for you. And we've done that. We need to do that. But yours, the rest of it is yours. Because if this is a scam, if we're doing something that needs to be exposed, but if you're doing something to stay safe and then you're continuing to suffer, you're going to want to expose that. And that's what the inquiry is for. Thank you for listening.